Game balance is a hard topic to talk about. When you play any game, you'll encounter situations where some strategies end up being stronger than others. Sometimes it's the weapons you can use, sometimes it's the way that you and your team synergizes, maybe it's specific items, but for a lot of games, when the terms of balance come up, the characters you play is the first thing that people bring up. For fighting games, it's basically the only thing that people bring up when it comes to balance. There are people who complain about how the system mechanics work in some cases, but most of the time when someone is complaining about balance in a fighting game, they always say that one character is either way too strong or one character is way too weak. Most of the time, people are complaining about a character that is better than their own. The majority of people will say that X character is strong because they beat their character without actually considering how they fit into the entire cast. Or maybe you just get gapped and blamed it on the enemy's character because you can't deal with the skill issue. But today I want to take a step back away from all of the discourse about who's the strongest character, as when balance is brought up, it feels like everyone is talking about the top end of the tier list. No, I want to do what I do best and look down at the bottom tiers to figure out a burning question. So, let's talk about the worst character in Guilty Gear Strive. Since Strive's launch, the roster has expanded quite a bit, with a lot of characters getting added and changed, meaning the balance of the game has shifted a lot since I last discussed it. Sol is no longer the menace that it used to be, Angie is somewhat playable, and Giovanna got the Mufasa treatment, unless you're Ty apparently. It's been a long time since the last balance patch, and with a new one right around the corner, I want to finally look back at the whole cast and answer the burning question: who is the weakest character right now that needs the most love? But how am I gonna figure that out? And that is where I come in. Hi, I'm Dr. Gecko Scroll. You can tell I'm a doctor because of the lab coat. I have spent the past several months doing in-depth research on the balance of Guilty Gear Strive. And by months, I mean the past week, and by in-depth, I mean I've been sick in bed and I've had nothing better to do. Using my superior intellect and genius level knowledge, I have definitively found out who is the worst character in Guilty Gear Strive. The bottomest of the bottom tier. The character who has the biggest gap you've ever seen. The one and only true character that can look their opponents in the eye and say, skill issue. You do need to brace yourself though, as the information I'm about to give you will blow your mind all across the back wall. The findings in this video will shock and disturb you. Are you prepared? Are you ready? Are you sure? Because I don't think you really are. Well, if you say so, let's begin the experiment. But before we do that, I should walk you through the method that I use to find who is the worst character objectively in Guilty Gear Strive. There are two main tools that we're going to be using for this investigation, and the first one is a website known as Rating Update. Rating Update is a website that tracks your theoretical MMR whenever you play matches in the tower of Guilty Gear Strive. It's a good tool to use to figure out how much you've improved over the course of long periods of time, or just to see where you generally are currently in the state of the game. However, I don't recommend using it often because it can become very addicting, and quite frankly, it doesn't help you that much. Trust me, it has made several of the people I know extremely depressed when the number has gone from a very high number to not a very high number. So, use it with caution. Also, under no circumstances ever look at Rating Update while playing. Trust me. However, the website does have several useful other tools that we'll be able to use in order to figure out who is the gappest of the gap character. The main one that we're going to be using is the matchup charts that the developer has handily put in the game for us. These matchup charts come in several different flavors. You got your universal, your top 1000, you got your top 1000 but, you know, a little bit of spice, and then you've got your top 100 players. We're going to be using the top 100 chart just because, you know, this is a video about balance, so we want to look at good players and not everyone. But what class is a top 100 player? Well, as you can see, there are lists on Rating Update that show you the top 100 of every character. If you are on this list, your matches against other people also on other lists count. If you're below this list, your match doesn't count. So basically, we're looking at the table that has everyone above 1,750-ish ELO rating for their character, fighting people also above 1,750-ish ELO. Now, A thing that I should bring up is I originally was going to leave Sin out of this discussion because when I started writing this script and started doing my research, he was only about a week old. But since then, the table has filled out much more and there's a lot of data on the character. So I decided to include him in the actual test. Do not worry, he did not fuck anything up. And the second main tool that we're going to use is common fucking sense. I played this game a lot more than I should have, so I kind of know the general area of which characters are good and which characters are absolute dog shit. But I don't want my personal bias affecting the entire rating. Just because I hate Kai doesn't mean that he should naturally by default be at the top of the list. But playing the game a lot also means that I generally know the general discourse going around the game. You hear a lot of people talk about balance, and there's 3 main characters that I've seen that people complain about basically more than everyone else. So let's go over these 3 characters which I am deeming the top 3 in the game. Ramlethal Valentine. Said to be the best character in the game right now, Ramlethal Valentine has insane neutral, insane corner carry, insane corner damage combo, insane meterless damage combo, and insane metered damage combos. Not to mention she has the most annoying reversal in the game that makes me have a fucking aneurysm every time I get hit by it. Along with this and all the frame traps that she has, Ramlethal's an absolute menace to fight and is easily on this list. Next up we have Nagoriyuki. With his really good pressure, really good buttons, and insane gimmick that allows him to become the best neutral character you've ever seen, Nagoriyuki is an absolute menace for anyone that doesn't have projectiles and isn't the antithesis of Sad Order. Also, just look at the green on the matchup chart, like, he wasn't going to be bottom anyway. Happy Chaos. Do I need to explain myself on this one? Insane zoning, insane rush down, best pressure you've ever seen in the game, really annoying neutral, really good buttons, amazing conversion tools. I feel like I don't need to say much more. He's obviously at the top of the list. Now, I was tempted to put more than 3 characters on the list. However, these 3 are the ones that I generally see are complained about the most. For example, I could put Jacko on there for my own bias because I hate fighting Carrot, but that wouldn't exactly be fair because not a lot of people think she's very broken right now. I could also put Kai on there for being extremely privileged, but again, I'm apparently alone in that idea. But what did I do to define good characters between bad characters? Well, that's simple. I did a lot of math. A lot of math. Like a lot of math, a lot of spreadsheets. It was very tedious. I didn't expect when I took this as my job to be filling in a spreadsheet, but here we are. You see, when it comes to tier lists, the tiers are representative of 2 different things. The first one is the most obvious. How good is your character? If your character is not very good against the majority of the cast, they're generally going to be a bit lower on the tier list. Whereas if your character bodies everyone, they're going to be generally higher on the tier list. But the second thing is actually one of the more important things that the tier list actually represents, and that's how good your character stacks up to the people at the top of the tier list. For example, if your character generally loses to most characters, but they have a really good matchup against Nagoriyuki, they might go up an entire tier just because they're a counterpick to one of the best characters in the game. But how are we going to use this table to figure out how these characters match up on this table? Well, that's easy. This shows the win rate of every character between each other characters. And from this, we can figure out the matchups between every character on the Celestial Floor. From this, we're able to turn it into 2 numbers that look like this. The left number represents the character that we are currently talking about. The right number represents the character that they are fighting. So if you have a matchup that is 4.5 to 5.5, the character on the left will win 45% of the time. The math is done in 0.5 increments, meaning that if you are at 45% win rate, you will have a 4.5 to 5.5 matchup. But if you have a 46% win rate, you would have a 5-5 matchup. This is just to make the maths easier on myself so we don't have a lot of weird numbers at the end. Please don't flame me in the comments for this. Depending on how high the left number is above 5, you will gain the point difference. If it is below 5, however, you will lose the point difference. So if you have a 6-4 matchup, you will gain a point. But if you have a 4-6 matchup, you'll lose a point. At the end, all of the numbers will be added up to get a general points total to show how good that character is in the general meta right now. The higher the number, the better. But why did I list the strong characters earlier? What are you doing, Gecko? You don't know what you're doing.
Shut the fuck up, I'm getting to that.
For the characters who are strong, they're actually going to have a double multiplier on the points. So if you have a good matchup against them, like a 6-4, instead of getting 1 point, you're going to get 2. But if you have a bad matchup, like a 4-6, you're not only going to lose 1 point, you're going to lose 2. Is it harsh? Yeah. Anyway, with that out of the way, I'm going to go sit down and do a bunch of maths. I'll see you in an hour.
One hour later.
Okay, so I just spent 40 minutes of my life filling out a spreadsheet. But we have all of the values now. Don't worry about my brain being turned to mush. Now, if you haven't actually figured it out yet, this video is just for a little bit of fun. You shouldn't really take everything that I say with 100% value, and some of the results that I'm about to show you should prove that. However, I need to make this extremely clear right here and now. You cannot use any of the results that I show you to go harass players about how good or bad they are. Cannot use any of the results I give to harass people who play certain characters and say that they're carried. You also cannot use the results to say that you are not boosted. The results are still not exactly the best because there is still a massive divide between the top 100 players. Let's say that you're, top 100 May. If you took the bottom of the top 100 Mays and had them fight Tiger Pop, it still wouldn't be a fair match, but it counts on the rating update matchup chart. So, take everything I say with a pinch of salt. However, the matchup chart has had some maths done to it to equate for this. So, there you go. With that being said, there's some results in this table that I want to go over really quickly, just because I found them very interesting. Looking at the top of the table, in first place, we have Nagoriyuki with a whopping 14-point total. This isn't exactly surprising, considering the fact that, yeah, most people generally consider him one of the stronger characters right now. But in second place, we have, with a whopping 13.5 points, Chip. And suddenly you can see the fault in the system. Chip isn't exactly seen as a very strong character right now by most players. In fact, most people kind of think he's irrelevant right now. But he does have a very decent matchup spread and some good matches against some of the top tiers. In fact, none of the top 3 are actually negative matchups for him, so he didn't take a massive hit from them. He got positive with Ramlefall, but he's going 5-5 against everyone else. In fact, he has one of the best matchups in the game, apparently, as against Zado, he has a 7-3 matchup. Allegedly. I will let you decide if this is because Chip is broken or everyone is currently just getting gapped by Chip. But then, of course, third place to no one's surprise with a whopping 12.5 points is Kai Kisk. This list is vindicating me. It's letting me know that I was right. Oh, Gecko Kai's not that strong. He's mid-tier. He's only decent. I fucking told you. I fucking told you, didn't I? Look at this privileged man. Look at his landlord-looking ass. Fucking knew all along. I was correct. I, the weirdo in his room yelling into his microphone, was correct. No one listens to me. No one should ever listen to the Bicon plays about balance. Again, take it with a pinch of salt. But also I am more inclined to believe this one because I am correct. After that, we'll go back to a sense of normality with Happy Chaos, who has 8 points. But where's Ramlefall? Where's the Blanky monster? Well, she wasn't top 3, so where is she? 9th place, with a whopping 1 point total. Now, this is in part due to the fact that she isn't getting any negatives or getting any positives from herself. But that didn't also stop Chaos and Nago getting near the top. But like, yikes, man. 1? She did go slightly negative against Chaos and Nago, so that definitely bumped her down a little bit, but this is still a very surprising result. I don't exactly know what the table's doing to make all of this wizard stuff happen, so there's a good chance that that affected the result that we're getting here. However, I like to personally think that the Strive community has finally just figured out the Ramlefall matchup in general, and is kind of gapping the players. Anyway, her win rate is apparently very middle of the road, according to this table. Take that as you will. Apart from that, there's a few more interesting placements I want to go over. There's only one character who's considered perfectly balanced with a score of 0, and that's Jacko, of all characters. She is, I shit you not, 11th out of 22nd place, exactly middle of the table. Everyone, this is what perfect balance looks like. Sin, for being the newest character, made it to a respectively high place on the leaderboard, getting 7th place with a score of 2.5. And if you want to know if I personally am carried, I get to tell you with a big shit-eating grin on my face that Bicon came 6th with 4 total points. meaning that this is the second season in a row where I have mained a top 6 character. Please, hold your applause, hold your applause, hold your applause. And with that, I think it's finally time that we got into the list that you've been looking for. Let's go through the bottom 5 characters according to this method. 5th and 4th place are actually tied, both having negative 10 points. The characters with negative 10 are Testament and Eno. My light died. I honestly didn't expect to see the Master of Gender Neutral so down on the list, but apparently Testament isn't doing that hot right now. Testament unfortunately has a pretty bad matchup spread. Don't get me wrong, they have a few decent matchups and a handful of even matchups, but the majority of their matchups, they end up going negative in them. And trust me, they have some absolute fucking stinkers among them. Testament versus Kai, apparently, is a 3.5 to 6.5 matchup. Bruh, this is tying with Testament versus Baiken, which is a 3.5 to 6.5 matchup. Which, But against all of the top tiers, they have 4.5 to 5.5 matchups, which is honestly pretty decent. Whereas Eno has a much more decent matchup spread. Her only stinker is against Baiken, which is again a 3.5 to 6.5 matchup, which... guys! But against the top tiers of the game, her matchups are ass! 3.5 to 6.5 against Nago, 4.6 to Happy Chaos, and a 4.5 to 5.5 against Rambleful. After doubling the scores, that is a combined total of negative 5 points just from the top tiers alone. That absolutely just plummeted her down the list. But which of these are we going to give 5th and which are we going to give 4th? Well, just because Eno has a better actual full matchup spread, I'm inclined to give Eno 5th and Testament 4th. Just because Eno fails against the current top tiers, but she can still body more people, whereas Testament has rougher matchups. They're just doing a bit better against the top tiers. However, for argument's sake, they're equally as bad as each other right now. Only Volk is allowed to use this information to say that Eno is bottom tier. No other Eno player is allowed to say that. At bottom 3 with an unbelievable negative 11.5 points, we have Angie Mido. This isn't really a shock to most people. It isn't a shock to me, to be fair. Angie hasn't ever really been considered good, even though he got buffs this season. The things that they changed about him were either considered not very useful or just not that helpful at all. So once again, Angie sits at the bottom of the list, and the fact that he has terrible matchups against the top tiers isn't doing him any favors. He does have a good matchup. He has a 5.5 to 4.5 against Ramafall. However, he has a 3.5 to 6.5 matchup on both Nagoriyuki and Happy Chaos, leaving him at an eye-watering negative 5 points just from the top tiers. Even if we weren't doing doubles, Angie still wouldn't be faring very well. He has no matchups better than a 6 to a 4 against Chip, and that is his only 6-4 matchup, by the way. Hopefully my boy gets a few buffs that help him bumping up the tier list a little bit, because good God does he need it. At second place, just crawling into that second worst place with a negative 12 score, we have Faust. Now, this has been said for a while, even since the start of the game, but Faust has never actually been that good. Along with Angie, he was considered the worst in the game when the game released. However, this matchup spread is... Jesus Christ. Faust has only 2 positive matchups. The rest are either neutral or negative. And his matchups against the top tiers? Holy shit. Now, to his credit, one of his positive matchups is against Naro, but against Ram, it's a 3.5 to 6.5, and against Chaos is a depressing 3 to 7 matchup, meaning he is losing in total 6 points just from the top tiers again. That is half of his total points from the top 3 characters. Because of this, Faust is struggling right now. But I know a couple of Faust mains that don't really give a fuck. They're finding tech in matchups that you wouldn't even believe, and I know for a fact that the Baiken Faust matchup has become extremely harder ever since CPU actually decided to lab it. There's a good chance that in the coming weeks, months, maybe even years, we'll be seeing Faust slowly boost up the tier list, even if he doesn't get any buffs. However, looking at this chart, there's a good chance that the revolutions will just stay whispers in the basement for a while. Now, before I go into bottom one, I want you, yes, you, to go into the comments and tell me who you think it is. Look at the video length. You are in this for the ride now. We are literally right there, and I know for a fact that you have an idea of who you think it is. Hell, I'll even give you a hint. They have a eye-watering, staggering, depressing total of negative 19.5 total points. Who's it gonna be? Axel? Milia? Potemkin? Angie again somehow? Have you got your vote in? Alright, cool. Let's go on to the results. Ladies, gentlemen, and others, I present to you the worst character in Guilty Gear Strive, with an absolutely astounding negative 19.5 points. The worst character in Guilty Gear Strive Season 2 is Bridget. Biscuit. Buckshot. Bridge. Brisket. You know, Bridget. Bridget is the worst character in Guilty Gear Strive right now. The stats on Bridget's table are bad. Like, really bad. Please proceed to guess how many matchups Bridget won. 1. She won 1 matchup against Zato. The matchup is 5.5 to 4.5. That's because rating update saved her. The roll win rate, it's not that good. She then has 7 matchups, which are 5-5, meaning that the rest of her matchups are negative. That leaves 14 total matches in which she is losing. 14! There are 22 characters. She also has the worst matchup in the game with a depressing, utterly disgusting 2.5 to 7.5 against Jacko. She goes even with Chaos. It's not saving her from the double points, though. Even if we didn't do the double points method, she would be at the bottom of the list by far. The majority of her points are coming from just how many matchups she's losing, not those double points. So why is she bottom tier? I have no idea. Literally, zero. No clue. I thought Bridget was pretty good going into this. I thought she was going to be mid-tier, but nope. Apparently worse, Bridget isn't exactly the least popular character. A lot of casual players really like her. Just go on Twitter for a couple of minutes and you'll see that. In fact, don't go on Twitter. Don't look at Bridget on Twitter. That was a terrible mistake. Don't do that, please. However, the majority of her players are on the lower end of the skill floor, with her having the biggest percentile of players below 1100 MMR. She also has the lowest barrier of entry to get a top 100 character on rating update, needing only a 1630-ish MMR rating on her to be considered a top 100 Bridget. This is pretty low considering that the average is 1750 MMR. So what gives? Is it because Bridget is fundamentally bad, or is there a skill gap going on? I don't know. I really want to be able to look at you guys and be like, Bridget is the worst character. Go to the Arx's Twitter and tell her that she needs buffs now. But like, Bridget? There's also several things in this list that kind of go against the standard narrative of the characters right now. Just look at Ram being middle tier. Character balance is not an easy topic to go over. In fact, it's very hard. Have you ever tried having a civil conversation with a Milia player about balance? Exactly. It's not an easy thing to talk about. Even using just the stats from Rating Update, I can't wholeheartedly say that this is the worst character in the game. In fact, Rating Update used to have a paragraph on their page saying, hey, take these stats with a pinch of salt. They're not that good. But they seem to have gotten rid of it, so that's why I'm finally making this video. The thing with Bridget as well is the rating for top 100 is just so low. You can have someone who's as good as My Sin, which is garbage by the way, and have them fight Tiger Pop, and it classes as a top 100 match. The math kind of helps putting things in perspective, but is this really the list of the best characters? I don't know. And neither should you. Balance is something that's hard to figure out. Just putting maths to it isn't going to tell you the full story. These numbers say that these matchups are this way, but this doesn't actually say why the matchups are this way. If you want to figure that out, you should talk to people who play the characters. Talk to pro players who play them. And I mean multiple pro players. I don't mean just listen to one person, because then you'll become an echo chamber for their thoughts. Unless it's Romola, she generally seems to be right about most things. Once you've done that, come to your own conclusion. You can figure out who's good or bad. If you're having trouble with a matchup, then maybe they're a really good character. maybe they're bad. But you need to always take things with a pinch of salt and do a bit of your own research. At the end of the day, your own experiences are going to shape the way that you think about characters. If in your region, let's say you have a really good Angie player, you might think that Angie is better than most people. Whereas if you have a really bad Nagoriyuki player, you might think that Nago's worse than other people. Finding players at the top of their game with their characters and figuring out how good they are through that is the best way that you can do it. But you still gotta put some respect on the name. This was just a bit of fun though. Hopefully the characters at the bottom of this list do get buffed, because some of them do definitely need some love, but there's a patch coming in a week and a bit anyway. So hopefully we'll see some good changes from Arxis. Hopefully. And when that patch does come and everyone's complaining about the balance of different characters, you can firmly look them in the eye and finally say, well, at least they're not as bad as Season 2 Bridget. You're welcome, Diaphone. If you want to make a video saying, ooh, Bridget was bottom 1 and I won a tournament with her, you're welcome. You got to give me a shout out if you do it because of this, though. You are welcome for the free content. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you like the new format. It's a little bit weird. I will admit, I have no idea how this is going to turn out. I'm currently just looking at my camera and talking to you. I'm currently streaming on Twitch. You can see the link probably at the bottom of the screen somewhere. Twitch.tv/GeckoSquirrel_live. We're going to be playing a couple of part games of Guilty Gear Strive, so hopefully you can come over. We'll have a good chat. And you can tell me who you think is the worst character in the game. Unless you're a Milia player. Or a Potemkin player. Or a Nago player. Or a Ram player. You know what? Actually, don't come over and tell me who you think the worst character is. Just come and say hi. I'll hopefully see you all there. Thank you all for watching. And I'll see you next time. Once again, very special thanks to 64MHz, Brudakai, Daniel Wiederit, Games.png, Lady Dantalon, Maki Yamazaki, Melodically Me, Monact, Proxy, Smeech, Super, Straw Fox, and Tom Tanks for being Tier 2 patron supporters.